compound statements and connectives. These are the topics we're going to cover in this section. In last section, we did introduce statement, negations, and quantified statement. So the objectives are: express compound statements in symbolic form, express symbolic statements with parentheses in English, use the dominance of connectives. These are the objective. Simple statements are just one idea which we did discuss in previous section, like some true and false statement. For example, London is the capital of England. This is a simple statement. Compound statement means it's a combination of two or more simple statements using connectives. Okay, connectives like and, or, if, this, then this. This is how you read. If, dot, 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 then, and if and only if. So 1, 2, 3, 4 different connectives. How do you generate them? Let's start with the and. If you have two statements, simple statement, and if you would like to connect them with the and, then you say P and Q, and this is the symbol we use, and we read it as a and, P and Q, or P conjunction Q. Okay, this is called a conjunction, logic conjunction. Okay, so P and Q, this is the same thing. You can also express as P but Q, P at Q, P nevertheless Q. All these have the same meaning. Because of that, we are going to use the same symbol for this conjunction. Example, it is after 5 p.m. and they are working. So these are the two statements, and we're connecting them by and. We can say the very same thing, same meaning, differently. It is after 5 p.m. but they are working. So same information. So whenever you see and, but, at, nevertheless, you can use this and conjunction symbol. Or you can also connect to statement using the or. For example, let's say I visited London or Paris, and this statement can mean exclusive or, meaning either London or Paris, or both, inclusive. I visited London or Paris or both. So this or could be anything. Notation wise, this is the notation we use for the or. P or Q or both. This notation is true for both of them. Either you say P or Q, or you say P or Q or both. Make sense? There is another connectives called if. One statement is true, then another statement is true. If P is true, then Q is true. This is how we write. Okay. Let's say you have a statement P. If P is true, then Q is true. So if blank, then statement. For example, all poets are writers. There are no poets that are no writers. So we know this statement. So how do we say it? Using if, then. If a person is a poet, then that person is a writer. Yes, that's how we can connect them. All poets are writer. So if a person is a poet, then that person is supposed to be a writer. And what is the symbol? This is the symbol for if P is true, then Q is true. P implies Q. And that is called conditional statement. Okay? If P is true, then Q is true. And there is another way to say, all these, if P, then Q, it has a different meaning in English statements. For example, if P, then Q, Q if P, P is sufficient for Q, Q is necessary for P, P only if Q, comma P. So in English statement, you are allowed to use any of these type of statement, and then we still have the same meaning, same notation, This is coming from if P true, then Q true. These are some example. If a person is teenager, then that person is younger than 20 years old. You can say the same thing using one of this. Being younger than 20 years old is necessary for being a teenager. Yeah. So in English statement, there are different ways to say the same thing. Okay. If and only statement. If and only means if statement P is true, if P is true, if and only if. If P is true, P is true if and only if and only if Q is true. Meaning, if P is true, then Q is true, and if Q is true, then P is true. So they are conditional for both of them. So this is how we write. If one is true, then another one is true. Okay. So this is the notation we use. Example: if a person is a teenager, then that person is younger than 20 years old. True. If a person is a teenager, then that person is 13 to 19 years old. That is also true. Okay. So that's how we can connect. That's how we can use if and only if. And there are different ways to say the very same thing in English statement. You just have to look at the statement and then that will tell you. For example, Q if and only if P, and then P if and only if Q, they have the same meaning. If P then Q, and if Q then P, that is also the same meaning. P is necessary and sufficient for Q. Good. Necessary and sufficient for Q. So that means if P is true, then Q is true, and if Q is true, then P is true. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about symbolic logic. Negation means this symbol, not P. It is not true that P. Conjunction, P and Q. Disjunction, P or Q. Conditional, P implies Q. Biconditional, P and Q both implies each other if and only if. Okay. In expressing symbolic statement with parenthesis, sometime this statement comes with the parenthesis. So first of all, we do the operation inside the parenthesis and find out the statement. Q and not P implies not R. So if you group together Q and not P, and then first of all, statement to group together. This is what you have to group together. If P, Q and not P, then not R. That's the English translation. If Q and not P, then not R. Okay, notice that when we translate the symbolic statement into English, the simple statement in parentheses appear on the same side of the comma. So whenever we do this type of operation inside the parentheses, we have to think about the dominance of connectives. For example, in algebra, whenever operations like division, multiplication, addition and subtraction, you have to follow the order of operation. You do the division first, and then multiplication, and then addition and subtraction. Similarly here, if you have this statement, compound statement, they come together, then first of all you do the operation for the biconditional. That's the most dominant, and then conditional, and then conjunction and disjunction, and then finally negation. So these are the order of operation you follow when taking care of the statement, compound statement. Okay, example here. Let's see some actual example. Fill in the blanks so that the resulting statement is true. The compound statement P and Q is symbolized for, this one is the symbol, and that's called conjunction. No problem. Let me go with number 3. The compound statement if P then Q, this is the symbol, if P then Q, and is called, what is this called? Conditional. Determine whether the statement is true or false. P or Q means P or Q, but not both. No. R means it could be both. The statement is false because the connective R is the symbol representation for either or both. Let P and Q represents following statement, simple statement. P represents I work hard, Q represents I graduate. Now we need to make this statement compounded statement. I don't work hard or I graduate. So P is the I work hard, so negation of the P, and then there is a or, so or means this symbol, and then I graduate means that is Q. I don't work hard or I graduate. Okay, P is I get a promotion, Q is I do my homework. So we need to use this simple statement to write down the statement for this one, which is I get a promotion if and only if I do my homework. So that means P, if and only if, means that's a biconditional. So Q. Let P and Q represent the following simple statement. P is that the campus is open. The Q is it is Sunday. We would like to write down the campus is not open if and only if it is Sunday. So the campus is not open if and only if it is not Sunday. What happened? If and only if it is Sunday. The campus is not open. I choose the open. This one. The campus is not open if and only if it is Sunday. Finally, let me do one more. P, Q, and R, three simple statement. P is that the chair is broken. Q is the taxes are high. And R is I work hard. The chair is broken and the taxes are high, or I work hard. So you see that the end thing. So it comes together first. So inside the parenthesis, the chair is broken, which is P, and means this one. The taxes are high, which is Q. I close the parenthesis. Or means this symbol. I work hard. I work hard is R. The chair is broken and the taxes are high, or I work hard. Okay, and that's all for this section.